Marriage is like a graveyard, isn't it? It was supposed to be my big day, my wedding. Yet, out of the blue, my mother-in-law, Linda, started spewing ridiculous things. To make matters worse, she laughed arrogantly and threw water on my wedding dress. The atmosphere for the rest of the ceremony felt like a funeral, completely dampening the celebratory mood. The folks from William's family just stood there, snickering and watching the scene without stopping Linda. A year after that hellish wedding, I got my chance for revenge. My sister-in-law is getting hitched. Would you believe it? The date of her wedding is the same as mine. I'm thinking of giving her a taste of her own medicine with that life's graveyard comment. My name is Mary. I'm a newlywed in my early 30s. I had registered our marriage when I was 30, but the wedding was planned for 2 years later, once we'd saved enough money. My husband, William, didn't seem too interested in me. Whenever I tried to talk to him, all I got was, yeah. So, even when I had something I wanted to discuss, he wouldn't listen. For 2 years, I had to tolerate something. It was the harassment from William's family. Is it meat pie again today? Didn't you have a meat pie just last week? If you keep eating only meat pie, aren't you gonna lack proper nutrition? You should cook more balanced meals. It's not fair to son. Linda, my mother-in-law, would come over daily to inspect my meals. She never came in the morning, perhaps because William was around, but she'd always show up around lunchtime. I started living with William 2 years ago, and since then, Linda's been visiting every day. The reason? Our houses are incredibly close. Our place and Linda's are just a stone's throw away, about 50 yards apart. Many might be wary of living so close to their in-laws, anticipating issues. But I was completely fooled by Linda. Before our wedding, she was so sweet, always saying, "If you ever need anything, just let me know." Indeed, when I'd discuss issues about William, she'd respond, "That's not okay. I'll talk to him about it." She always seemed to care. That's why I thought living nearby wouldn't be a problem. But when the real life kicked in, Linda turned out to be a stereotypical meddling mother-in-law. It wasn't just about the food. She'd nitpick on how I cleaned the house, placed dishes, and all the minor things. At first, I thought, well, she's the elder, and complied with her requests. But when I mentioned this to friends, they were like, "That's not right. She's totally bullying you. She's nitpicking for no reason, just to annoy you." I hadn't known the bullying by a mother-in-law really happened until then, so I decided to look it up online. When I did, I found stories that mirrored what I was going through with Linda. So this is what they call bullying by a mother-in-law. That's what I thought. I decided to no longer take everything Linda said to heart. "This dish isn't good. It needs to be less salty." "No, William's job is physically demanding, so he needs a bit more salt. He loses minerals when he sweats." The moment I decided not to let Linda dictate everything was the first time I think I ever talked back to her. After that, maybe she didn't like my attitude, and she started visiting less frequently. Now in our 2nd year of marriage, we were set to visit my in-laws for Thanksgiving Day. Since Linda's visits had become infrequent, I thought it would be good to show our faces. Being the holidays, my sister-in-law was also home. She had been living with her boyfriend since college, coming home only during extended breaks, making her visits special. But this holiday was different. There was a growing animosity towards my sister-in-law. For some reason, William had to work during the holiday, so he would be joining us later in the evening. I received a call from Linda telling me to come early and prepare the meal, so I went shopping at the grocery store and market early in the morning and arrived at the in-laws' house around noon. Upon arrival, my sister-in-law was already there, sitting at the table with my father-in-law and Linda. I assumed they were having lunch, and when I looked, there was clearly some expensive sushi. "Oh, you're early. There's none for you, so you better start preparing dinner. And it better be better than this sushi." "Come on, Mom, don't be so hard on her. But please, make a nice meal." My sister-in-law's makeup was heavier than before, and she got her nails done. I knew she had a job, and I wondered if those nails were suitable for doing daily chores. It was clear that Linda and my sister-in-law intended to annoy me, but I didn't care since I had eaten a delicious poke bowl during my shopping trip. I did as I was told and started cooking. But then I overheard them saying, "Isn't she super unfriendly? She's always been like that. William should have married someone cuter. Well, at least the makeup helps a bit." The three of them were speaking their minds. I was a bit hurt, but I couldn't let them see that. If I showed them I was upset, it would just make them happier. By evening, when William arrived, for some reason, there were barbecue platters on the table. I made dinner just as I was told. "Why are these here?" To which I got the response, "Did you really cook anything? You came in the evening and didn't do anything. What's this supposed to prove?" Roast chicken, salads, and a beef stew that had been simmering for hours should have been in the fridge. I opened the fridge, but it was empty. "Hey! Don't go rummaging through someone else's fridge." I realized I had been tricked. After I had finished cooking, I went back to our house to fetch something I had forgotten. I thought a few minutes would be fine, but I had underestimated them. I didn't know who did it, but I suspected it was Linda. Both my sister-in-law and father-in-law were smirking at me. They probably all knew Linda had thrown out my food. It was so frustrating. I never told William about the way I felt or the troubles with his family. Then, on our second wedding anniversary, we decided to have a wedding ceremony. Surprisingly, William seemed excited about the idea of a wedding, and he helped out with everything, from choosing the dress and venue to creating the guest list. Of course, his parents were on the invite list. I figured it was a wedding, so they wouldn't cause any trouble. Boy, was I wrong? On the wedding day, I regretted being so naive. The ceremony began with the gathering of attendees, and then it transitioned into the reception. After changing outfits, we headed to the place. When I met William's gaze, he was staring intently at me. "Is there something on my face?" "Oh, I had to reapply my lipstick earlier." "Is it smudged?" I asked, but he didn't respond. After a moment's thought, he whispered, "You look beautiful." I never expected to hear those words from him. In the 2 years since we married, no, considering the 5 years since we started dating, William had never called me cute or beautiful. The only times he really made me feel special were when he confessed his feelings and proposed. I was distressed about his family's behavior, but that one sentence from William made me feel like the wedding would be a cherished memory. Then, we started having dinner. Glancing over to where his family sat, everyone looked casual, but they seemed a bit loud. Those around them were constantly looking their way, and their laughter was audible even from where we were. It was unsettling, but I felt relieved when the staff intervened and they quieted down. Then, it was time for the first dance. However, that's when things took a turn. We danced, and everyone at the place started dancing following us. And my in-laws reached us. I thought to myself, just keep a smile on, just for today. Thank you all for coming today. As I told the grateful feeling to them, Linda suddenly threw her drink towards me. I was taken aback, but the screams from those around me brought me back to reality. Looking down, I was drenched. Confusion swirling, Linda, laughing loudly, proclaimed, "Marriage is the graveyard of life, isn't it? Ever since they got married, my son's become so distant and she doesn't even cook him decent meals. If this isn't a graveyard, then what is?" She continued. "Why are you doing this?" I asked, but she simply responded, "I feel sorry for my son." My sister-in-law and father-in-law standing next to her were laughing as well. The whole hall was abuzz, everyone unsure how to react, when William suddenly spoke up. "Enough is enough." Never had I heard such a loud voice from the usually calm William. And I bet others hadn't either. They looked furious. "I've been patient enough. Leave now." Grabbing Linda's arm forcefully, he began dragging her out. "Ouch, ouch! Don't do that!" Linda cried out, but was ignored and led outside the ceremony hall. My sister-in-law and father-in-law hurriedly followed. Concerned, I went after them, and outside I saw William sternly telling them, "I'm cutting ties with all of you. Don't ever interfere with Mary and me again. Can we talk? Yeah, let's not let your emotions get the best of you. William, please calm down. Despite their collective pleas, William ignored them all. He shoved them into a cab and sent them home. I was dumbfounded by the scene, but William came over, saying, "I'm really sorry. I didn't want our special day to end up like this." The reception couldn't continue in such an atmosphere, so it was cancelled. The guests were treated to sweets instead. Back in our private room, I honestly struggled to grasp the situation. Sure, the wedding being ruined was a shock, but I hadn't expected William to get so angry. "Why were you so mad?" "I thought you weren't that into me," I remarked. He looked a bit sad as he replied, "Can't blame you for thinking that. I'm just bad at expressing my feelings." As we talked more, it became clear he wasn't ignoring me. He was so smitten that he'd often get lost gazing at me and miss out on what was being said. He'd nod in response just so it didn't seem like he wasn't listening. "What? It was like that?" I couldn't help but be shocked. Moreover, William was aware of the harassment from my in-laws. Seeing me not discuss the harassment, he'd occasionally warn his entire family about their behavior. I hadn't noticed any hint of this at all, but now that I think about it, there were times when the harassment seemed to stop. "I told you when I proposed that I love you, Mary. That's never gonna change, and I promised to make you happy. This ain't exactly happiness though." That day, we both cried until the morning. For the next year, William tried his best to ensure I didn't have to face any difficulties. Thanks to his efforts, my stress was reduced a bit, and knowing William was on my side gave me strength. However, the harassment from the in-laws didn't stop. Moreover, they'd target times when William wasn't home to come over to our place. If we didn't respond, they'd leave snarky letters in our mailbox. Even if I tried to avoid them, such days continued for a while. I was sad that the in-laws ruined our wedding, but I was happy that William had always been by my side. And for the first time, I realized how comforting it was to have just one person on my side. Since then, William seems to have kept his distance from his family, but they frequently try to get in touch. However, neither of us responded to them. Then, there was news that William's sister, Lily, was getting married. The wedding was planned for a few months later, and without learning from the past, they sent us an invitation. Despite being frustrated at the insensitive sister, I came up with a plan. When I discussed this plan with William, he said, "Sounds good. People might talk, but remember, I'm always with you, Mary. Just let me know how I can help." Honestly, I was hesitant about executing the plan, but hearing that from William was reassuring. A few months later, I decided to execute the well-thought-out plan. We both attended Lily's lavish wedding. And I held on, waiting for the right moment to put my plan into action. I had given a DVD to the event staff beforehand, asking them to play it once I signaled them during the speeches. Lily had requested a speech from William, but when the time came, he didn't stand up. Seeing the staff flustered, I stepped up. "May I take his place?" Lily and her parents were taken aback, but the atmosphere didn't allow for them to say no. I opened up the prepared podium and stood in front of the microphone. "I'm truly happy for Lily's marriage. However, previously, your family used to say, marriage is a graveyard. What do you think about that? I never thought marriage was like that, but I never imagined you'd do something like that." As I raised my hand while speaking, an image was projected on the screen behind me. It was footage we had taken, thinking we'd watch our wedding ceremony later. The video showed Linda, my mother-in-law, pouring water during the dance, and my father-in-law and sister-in-law laughing at the scene. The nasty words of Linda could be heard as the audio played back. From this footage, maybe marriage really is a graveyard. Or perhaps, getting involved with the family feels more like a graveyard. The next video showed my mother-in-law and sister-in-law harassing me. I secretly recorded it with my smartphone, thinking it might be useful someday. I never thought it would come in handy in this situation. "My husband and I will cut ties with his family. I apologize for ruining the important wedding ceremony. But we wanted you all to know what kind of people they are. Excuse us." Ignoring my furious in-laws and sobbing sister-in-law, I left the venue. Outside, William, who had left as part of the plan, was waiting for me. "You did great. How about we go grab something tasty?" After eating, we headed home. The next day, we received numerous messages and calls from Linda and Lily, but we didn't respond. However, after countless calls, we decided to pick up once. On the other end, Linda was furious.
"Where the heck are you right now? I went to your place, and some strangers are living there."
It seems Linda came over to our house, realized we weren't there, and gave us a call. It was evident strangers would be there. After all, we had already moved out. William had suggested it when we planned to play the footage at my sister-in-law's wedding. Since we live close to our parents' place now, if we're gonna cut ties, maybe we should move somewhere they won't find us. Knowing them, they'll probably come to our house. I totally agreed with William's idea. William had been considering changing jobs, and the timing seemed perfect. He started job hunting while I searched for a new place to live. Both the job change and the move went smoothly, and all that remained was to attend my sister-in-law's wedding. After achieving our revenge, we headed to our new home, where we had already moved our belongings. We hadn't told anyone we were moving, and the new place was so far away that you'd have to take a plane. We believed there's no chance the in-laws would visit. However, to be safe, we had asked our neighbors not to tell anyone our whereabouts. As expected, Linda tried asking around, but nobody spilled the beans. Even though I wasn't saying anything, Linda kept talking one-sidedly.
"Are you listening? If you moved, just say so. What are you gonna do about us now?"
Linda was referring to the monthly allowance we used to send. Both William and I had decent incomes, and we had been sending money to the in-laws every month. I knew at some point that they were using our money for fancy sushi. But since I hadn't discussed it with William, he continued to send them the allowance. But after this incident, I told William everything, and he decided not to send any more money. We had been giving them money even before we got married, but after our wedding, our combined income gave us some financial comfort. William had consulted with me about the in-laws facing financial difficulties. I had agreed to increase the amount and continue the monthly allowance even after our marriage. However, in reality, they weren't struggling at all. They just made us send money so they could live lavishly. As the years went by, they saved less and could no longer live solely on their pension. In the end, it seemed they were relying solely on our allowance. Whether they realized its value after it was gone or whether they were genuinely struggling, they demanded,
"Send us money, and tell us your new address."
We had no intention of telling them our address, let alone ever meeting them again. I hung up the phone from Linda without saying a word. After that, whether I blocked her number or not, she kept sending me messages to see how things were going. According to the messages, after Lily's wedding, her fiancé had apparently confronted her quite harshly. Lily's fiancé was what you'd call well off in general terms, and my in-laws were expecting some financial support from him. However, once he found out about the incident at my wedding, he was furious and demanded to know what had happened. Lily claimed it was all Linda's doing, but there was footage of Lily laughing along. The fiancé declared he couldn't marry someone like that, breaking off their engagement. Naturally, the talk of financial support also fell through. The flustered family was expecting some financial help from us, but since we found out that the money was being used for luxury, that plan failed. Lily, who had been living with her fiancé, was kicked out and now lives with her parents. She had planned to be a homemaker after marriage, so she had already quit her job. So now, their income is just the pensions of Linda and my father-in-law. Knowing them, they probably don't have much savings. But the land where their house stands is quite spacious, so I guess selling it could fetch a decent amount. As a result, my in-laws decided to sell their home. Though they moved to a small one-bedroom apartment, for some reason, Linda keeps sending me detailed messages about their situation. Is she trying to guilt me into sending money? I don't feel sorry for them, and when I talked to William, he said, "It's annoying when they send messages like, 'Don't you feel bad for us?'" As for William and me, we were engrossed in our new jobs in a new place. William had switched jobs. And I set up a new company. A matchmaking agency. The incident with my in-laws was the catalyst. At the matchmaking agency, it's crucial to vet potential partners and introduce them to suitable matches. Dealing with my in-laws made me realize the importance of family. Even if someone seems perfect, their parents might not be. Having been through it, I believe I offer sound advice to those who come to the agency. Sometimes, they may need to be prepared to cut ties with their parents. In fact, almost everyone who found a partner through the agency has thanked me, saying things like, "I'm so glad I joined this agency. I had some non-negotiables, but I realized that if I changed, it wasn't a problem. I talked with my parents, and we agreed that we need some distance in our relationship." In fact, keeping some distance has helped many daughters get along with their mothers. "I owe it all to your advice, Mary," many have told me. Yet, while we're busy with our work in this new place, I sometimes wonder about my in-laws. I occasionally feel curious about how much they might be struggling now. But no matter how big their issues might be, we've decided it's none of our business. So, I plan to keep their number blocked, and I have no intention of reading any future messages from them. I'm aware that the events at the wedding have had a profound impact on my in-laws. But that's a result of the choices they made. William and I are living the life we chose for ourselves. And we believe that's what matters most.